Mr. Roark. Now, a lot of students spend the money to get these big fancy graphing calculators, but most students only use them like one of these little calculators. They use them for multiplying, dividing, maybe taking a square root, and that's about it. So in this video I want to show you a few things that you can do with these big fancy calculators and actually put them to more of a use. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is using the answer button. So this is really useful when you do a calculation and you have something that you want to use in another calculation. That's going to happen a lot of times in physics. So let's say we want to take 78 and divide it by 56, and then we're going to do another calculation where we take 400 and divide it by whatever that answer is. So the first part, of course, we just type in 78 divided by 56, and we get an irrational number. We get this big long decimal. Now we could write that down, or we could even just take 400 and put divided by and then put that whole answer in. So we put 400 divided by, and then we could type out 1.392857. But for one, we're going to have to round it off somewhere, and each time that we round one of the parts of our problems, that throws the final answer off a little bit. And number two, that's a lot of stuff to type in. Well, over top the negative sign, you see in kind of a different color, is ANS, and that stands for answer. So what that'll do, if we put that in by hitting the second key and hitting the negative sign so that it puts in ANS, that'll take whatever their previous answer was and put it into the calculation. So we can just go 400 divided by answer, and it'll put it in the calculation. So that saves a lot of steps without having to type out a lot of different things. Now, another helpful hint when you're using scientific notation is to use the E button instead of the times 10 to the. Most students that I see, if you want to put in, say, the speed of light, which is 300 million meters per second, so that's 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. If we want to put that in our calculator, most students would type in 3 and then go times 10 to the, and use the caret button, 8th to put that in. And that's fine. The problem is when you start putting those into calculations, a lot of times if you don't have parentheses in the right spot, something's going to mess up based on the calculator's order of operation. So an easier way, and a way that will make it a little bit more useful for doing long calculations, is to use the double E button, which is a second function above the comma. So for this calculation, what we would put in is 3, and then we'd hit second, comma, and it puts a capital E in there. And the E stands for times 10 to the. So we don't need to put 3e 10 to the. That already stands for it. The only thing we have to put is what our exponent is, and so that's 8. And when we enter that, we see we get the same number. And so we can use that to do calculations with any scientific numbers. If we want to put in 4.76 times 10 to the negative 11, then we would hit second, comma, and then negative 11. And then whatever calculation we do, if we want to multiply that by 98 or anything like that, it's going to understand that you mean 4.76 times 10 to the negative 11. Another useful thing is the ability to go back and actually select previous calculations or previous answers. And you do that just using the arrow keys. So here, if I decide I need to do a calculation with one of the answers I got above and I forgot to save it, and it's a few answers back, I can actually just use the arrow keys and scroll up, and it'll highlight each line. So each time I push the up arrow key, it'll go to a new part. So if I decide I want to use 30.06 here, I'm just going to hit enter, and it's going to bring that down and put it into the line of my calculation, and then I can do whatever I want with it. So let's multiply by 8 here, and you can see the answer here. You can actually do this even if you hit the clear button. So if we hit clear screen and you go, oh, I forgot what that answer was, I need to use that in the calculation, you can actually push the up arrow, there it is, You can hit enter, and it'll put it into the calculation for you. Divide it by 7 or whatever you'd like to do. That's not everything you can do with them, of course, but those are some common hints that'll make your math a little bit easier and save you some steps, and hopefully maybe even mean that you're not going to make a mistake inputting some calculation because you're having to do it over and over again. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, I'll see you in class.